You think you're aging because time is passing. That's wrong. A rock doesn't age. A diamond buried for 1 billion years comes out exactly as it went in. A clock ticks for a century and doesn't deteriorate, not really. So time by itself doesn't cause aging, something else does. And when you find out what it actually is, it's stranger and more beautiful and more unsettling than anything you were taught in school. My name is Paul Dirac. I spent my career trying to find the precise mathematical structure underneath reality. And I want to tell you something. Aging is not a biological accident. It is physics. It is written into the fabric of how the universe works, not as a punishment, not as a flaw, as a consequence of existing at all. Let's think about this carefully. You are not a thing. That's the first place the intuition goes wrong. When most people imagine their body, they imagine an object, a machine perhaps, that wears down with use. But that's not what you are. A machine, when it stops running, stays put. You, when you stop running, dissolve. You are not an object. You are a process, a pattern, a highly ordered structure that must constantly consume energy just to remain itself. Every second of your life, your body is fighting a war against disorder. You are importing energy, food, oxygen, and exporting waste, heat, entropy. You are a thermodynamic engine, running continuously, maintaining a state of improbable order in a universe that has an overwhelming preference for disorder. This is not metaphor. This is the literal physical description of what you are. And that word, disorder, brings us straight to the physics. The second law of thermodynamics. It says that in any isolated system, entropy, the measure of disorder, will always increase or stay the same, never decrease. This is not a statistical tendency. It is as close to an absolute law as physics possesses. And it is the reason a broken cup does not reassemble itself. The reason heat flows from hot to cold and never in reverse. The reason you cannot unscramble an egg. Now here's where most people make the mistake. They hear entropy always increases and they think, aha, that's why we age. The second law is running us down. But wait, your body is not an isolated system. You eat, you breathe, you excrete. You are constantly exchanging energy and matter with your environment. A living organism is what physicists call a far from equilibrium dissipative structure. You export disorder to stay ordered. You survive, in a thermodynamic sense, by pushing your entropy outward. A flame does the same. A hurricane does the same. The second law doesn't forbid local order. It just demands that you pay for it somewhere else. So the second law alone is not the answer. If it were, you could theoretically keep exporting entropy forever and never age. Something more specific is happening inside you. Here's what's actually happening. Every cell in your body divides. Skin cells, blood cells, the lining of your gut, constantly reproducing, replacing, renewing. And every time a cell divides, it must copy its DNA, all 3 billion base pairs of it. This is done by molecular machinery, enzymes, polymerases, that is genuinely extraordinary in its precision. The error rate is roughly 1 mistake per billion base pairs copied. But here's the thing. Perfection is physically impossible. To achieve 0 errors in copying would require infinite energy and infinite time. The fidelity of the copying process is a thermodynamic trade-off. You get very good copying for a reasonable energy cost. You cannot get perfect copying at any cost. So with every division, errors accumulate, mutations build up, the genetic text slowly degrades. Certain protective structures on your chromosomes, telomeres, the caps at the ends of each chromosome, shorten with each division, like the plastic tips of a shoelace fraying away. When they're gone, the chromosome itself begins to degrade. The cell stops dividing or starts dividing wrong. This is aging written in molecular letters, precise, measurable, real. But it still doesn't fully answer the question. Because you have repair systems, armies of enzymes whose entire function is to find and fix DNA errors. You have antioxidants, immune cells that hunt down and destroy damaged cells, protein-folding chaperones that catch misfolded molecules before they cause harm. Your body is not passively accepting damage, it's fighting it continuously with extraordinary sophistication. So why does the fighting eventually lose? This is where biology and physics converge on something genuinely disturbing. Natural selection shaped your repair systems, and natural selection doesn't care about you. It cares about reproductive success. Your body was optimized over billions of years of evolution to survive long enough to reproduce and raise offspring, not to survive indefinitely, not to repair itself forever. There's a theory in evolutionary biology called the disposable soma hypothesis. It goes like this. An organism has a finite energy budget. It can invest that energy in reproduction, making more copies of its genes, or it can invest it in somatic maintenance, keeping its body in perfect repair. Evolution found that investing heavily in reproduction and lightly in long-term repair was the winning strategy, because in the wild, most animals die of predation, disease, or accident long before cellular aging becomes the limiting factor. Pouring resources into repairing a body that's likely to be eaten next week is evolutionary waste. So your repair systems are deliberately, calculatedly underpowered past the age of reproduction. Aging isn't a failure of biology. It's biology working exactly as designed by the cold, indifferent logic of natural selection, which stopped caring about you the moment your reproductive usefulness declined. I find that deeply clarifying, also deeply unsettling. But there's another layer, one that connects more directly to physics and that almost nobody talks about: your mitochondria. These are the organelles inside your cells that produce ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the molecule your body uses as chemical energy currency. Everything your body does, muscle contraction, thought, immune response, runs on ATP. Mitochondria produce it through a process called oxidative phosphorylation, and they are extraordinarily efficient at it. But they leak. As a byproduct of generating ATP, mitochondria produce reactive oxygen species, molecules with unpaired electrons, hungry to react with anything they touch. These molecules are chemically aggressive. They damage DNA. They damage proteins. They damage the membranes of cells, and they are produced constantly as an inevitable byproduct of the very process that keeps you alive. Every breath you take powers you, and every breath you take slightly damages you. This is not a flaw in the design, it is the design. The trade-off is the design. The damage is the price of the energy. You cannot have one without the other. And here's what makes this testable and tested. Animals with faster metabolisms, small mammals like mice and shrews, produce ATP faster, leak more reactive oxygen species per unit time, and die younger. Animals with slower metabolisms, tortoises, certain deep-sea fish, live vastly longer. The metabolic rate is, to a first approximation, a clock, not because time passes, but because energy throughput causes molecular damage, and the faster it moves, the faster the damage accumulates. Living is oxidizing. Existing is a slow burn. Now, here is where I want to be honest with you, the way I've always tried to be honest in physics. Everything I've described are mechanisms. The error accumulation in DNA copying, the evolutionary logic of disposable soma, the oxidative damage from mitochondria. These are real. They are well supported. They explain much of what we observe. But they do not explain the deepest thing. They don't explain why entropy increases at all. They don't explain why the universe has a second law. They don't explain why the arrow of time only points in one direction, why the past is fixed and the future is open, why things fall apart rather than come together, why you can remember yesterday but not tomorrow. We can describe the arrow of time. We can quantify it, model it, measure its effects down to the molecular level in your cells. What we cannot do is derive it from first principles. The fundamental equations of physics, quantum mechanics, general relativity, are time symmetric. They work equally well run forward or backward. The asymmetry of time, the direction, the arrow, it appears in thermodynamics, in entropy, in the second law, but its ultimate origin is one of the deepest unsolved problems in physics, and aging is one face of that mystery. Every time a cell in your body accumulates an uncorrected error, every time a mitochondrion leaks a reactive oxygen molecule that damages a strand of DNA, every time a telomere shortens by one more repetition, you are not just experiencing biology, you are experiencing the universe enforcing the direction of time through your own body. Think about that. A wrinkle isn't just tissue losing elasticity, it is entropy made visible on your face. A grey hair isn't just melanocytes losing function, it's a thermodynamic signature, the record of energy transactions that could not be perfectly reversed. You are not deteriorating. You are participating involuntarily, inevitably, intimately in the universe's most fundamental process, the irreversible flow from order to disorder. And here is the thing I find most strange, most worth sitting with. The same physics that ages you created you. The second law drives disorder. But far from equilibrium thermodynamic systems, like the chemistry of early Earth, like the first self-replicating molecules, like every living thing that has ever existed, can produce extraordinary order locally, temporally, as a consequence of exporting entropy. You are not in spite of the second law, you are because of it. The energy flows that degrade you are the same energy flows that assembled you. Order and disorder are not opposites fighting each other. They are partners in the same process. You exist because entropy flows. You age because entropy flows. You will dissolve back into the universe because entropy flows. And somewhere in that flow, for a brief, improbable, thermodynamically expensive moment, you think, you ask questions, you wonder why you age. The universe, as far as we can tell, does not wonder anything. That asymmetry between matter that thinks and matter that doesn't, that might be the strangest thing of all. I don't have an equation for it. Not yet.